Hey there, baseball fans. Nathan Rohde, Shooter Hunt, and Aaron Fitt here, bringing you the latest episode of Coffee and Curveballs. As you can see by the three-headed monster and the inclusion of Aaron Fitt, this is a special episode as we are talking about the recruiting rankings that D1 Baseball just released last week. Shooter, you're a huge college baseball fan. We obviously got together and helped Aaron and Kendall with these rankings and giving insight on the high school guys. Well, Aaron, we'll talk about the process in just a minute, but I know you're excited to get in and talk about these guys that ended up on campus.
Oh, yeah. We've been talking about these classes now for 2 and 3 years. And just to know that they're on campus now, we're going to get to see them on TV, perhaps, and hopefully for most of these teams in Omaha, and just getting to read it from Fitzy and Kendall. Can't wait.
Yeah, no doubt. So, Aaron, we appreciate you joining us today, man, and talking these recruiting classes. To start us off, talk a little bit about the process, just briefly, in putting these together.
Well, for me, the starting point is usually I'll take a look at the PBR rankings, of course, from the previous spring. In this case, the PBR 100 and also the state-by-state rankings. You guys are so thorough with that stuff. You go 400 deep with your national rankings during the spring. And so, just a matter of putting together a spreadsheet that has all the unsigned guys from those rankings and just that kind of gives you a snapshot of where to start. And then, of course, spitballing with you and Shooter, trying to get a feel for which classes you guys are really high on. And then it's once you kind of put them into a rough starting order, it's cross-checking with a lot of trusted recruiting coordinators from around the country and scouts as well in different parts of the nation, and just trying to feel together, who are the classes that really stand out to people. And it's one of those things that is more of an art than a science, like most things that we do in this business. I don't think a formula cuts it for this process. I mean, the guy can have, a 98-mile-an-hour fastball and have no idea how to throw strikes, and maybe he's a big prospect with pro upside, but that doesn't make him a great college recruit necessarily. So It's a matter of trying to balance impact, potential, and upside with polish and instant impact.
No doubt. Yeah, that's definitely a great way to put it. It's not just taking the rankings, tallying it up, and then finding the average or whatever. There is definitely a lot more, analysis that goes into it in looking at them on a case-by-case basis. But let's talk about the top 5. We'll get into a podcast with Aaron to go into more detail about the entire top 25, even maybe some teams outside that. But just for today, we're going to top 5, and then Aaron's going to give us some sleeper classes as well. But at number 1, no stranger to competing at the in the College World Series at the college level, and that's the Louisiana State Tigers. I'm sure they've been near the top, if not at the top, before. But I think, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, really the big part about their recruiting class wasn't necessarily the high schoolers that bypassed the draft and ended up on campus, but it was really also what they kept from their juniors that come back for their senior year.
Well, for me, that's a big reason why LSU is probably going to be preseason number 1, but it had nothing to do for us with the recruiting class ranking. This number 1 ranking doesn't take into account the fact that they got Duplantis back and they got Watson back, and those juniors that could have signed that didn't. That a huge boon for them and made them the biggest winner, I think, of all on signing day. But that aside, the newcomers are special. And you guys know. I mean, you've written a lot about these players. I love the depth of this class, but also the balance of it. The top of the class, I think, is really built around those 3 marquee right-handed pitchers: Jaden Hill, Landon Marceau, and Cole Henry. All guys that have really electric stuff. And Marceau to me feels like the guy that he could be that next Aaron Nola type. Just because he's really polished, he can really pitch. He's extremely competitive. Not the biggest body in the world. Hill and Henry are probably more projectable, but Marceau is that kind of undersized guy with command at 88, 91. It can run it up, a little more than that, 94 miles an hour. Can put you away with that 12-6 hammer. Got feel for a changeup. I mean, it almost reminds me a little bit of Keegan Thompson at Auburn. A guy that everyone knew was going to be a great sign, out of high school, because not necessarily the best pro body, but guy that was advanced and polished and had put you away stuff and was a bulldog. Kind of feels like that sort of a guy to me. So I love the pitching in this class. course, you throw in Chase Costello, Ryan Gunter, Rick Threadgill. C.J. Willis is a guy that I think could be a superstar down the road. It's a very nice balanced class. I'm curious, you guys have seen these guys plenty. What stands out to you? I mean, any of these players really jump out more than the others?
Yeah, I think you touched on it right at the top, Landon Marceau, and we talk about it all the time, Rody, you and I, where some of these guys are, built for that pro ball. Landon Marceau is built for right now. There was some talk about last year, possibly got to school early, but he's got the command of the fastball, command of 4 pitches, where he can immediately slide into a weakened spot where LSU kind of lacked that pitching last year. And then looking at Jaden Hill and Cole Henry, the upside on those guys. If they click, you're talking about 3 weekend starters in one class. That's impressive. And Rody, before I let you go on this, I got to throw in Cade Beloso and Drew Bianco, who are guys that we talked about last fall, where they just put on the stripes and they put on that LSU jersey, and they're just big. They already have great skill, but it plays up even higher because when the lights are on, they're gamers.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of guys that you knew would be impact guys right away going in with this class, and then even some that can develop into it down the road, like a Jaden Hill. Landon Marceau, I feel like you could put Landon Marceau in Alex Box on Friday night as a freshman, and he'd be just fine. Other guys might need a little bit more time to matriculate, but Landon Marceau is a guy, he's going to be an impact guy right away for him. So definitely a huge get for the Tigers. But at number 2, an SEC foe, we've got Vanderbilt. Again, no stranger to having huge recruiting classes. They've been really good about getting some of those top-end recruits from the draft prospects to campus. And the one that they got this year was one of the top-ranked guys in the entire class was Kumar Rocker. And Aaron, I'm sure the guys out there in Nashville were just ecstatic to get him on campus.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous get. He's the number 1 ranked incoming freshman in the whole country this year. A guy that certainly had, first-round ability if it weren't for the signability and his strong commitment to Vanderbilt. He can run a fastball up to 98, the wipeout power breaking ball, that you don't see with this kind of mid to upper 80s velocity with the breaking ball. It's just incredible upside. And then you throw Austin Becker in there, a guy with pretty similar upside, maybe not quite as much, but it's a guy that's up to 96, with again a plus downer curveball. That's a great 1-2 punch, and of course the depth as usual with Vanderbilt. Their ability to do this year after year after year. If you look back historically at the recruiting class rankings over the last decade, when Tim Corbin and Kevin O'Sullivan have had those machines running along, Florida and Vanderbilt are the only programs that it's like they're in the top 10 every year, just about. And oftentimes it's number 1 or number 2. I think those two programs have had the number 1 spot more than anybody else since I've been doing this for 14 years or whatever. And LSU would probably be 3rd, So like Shooter said, rich get richer.
Yeah, and looking at Vanderbilt, that's a club that really did not need all that much in this class because they brought so much back from the freshmen and sophomores to see in this class a premier arm like Kumar Rocker who can immediately challenge for some starting role. What I think it will really do is give Austin Becker the time to season and get that good coaching from Scott Brown, one of the top pitching coaches in the country, to where he doesn't have that pressure to be a Saturday guy immediately, but can grow into that role. But, Dom Keegan, a kid out of New England, and Coach Corbin's always gotten a lot of play from New England, tough multi-sport kids. He also has a chance to really hit for them, too.
Yeah, he certainly does. So, yet again, a very deep class for the Vanderbilt Commodores. But at the number 3 spot, we'll shift over to the ACC, where we have Louisville, who has really become known in the last 5 to 10 years, maybe even longer than that, certainly as long as I've been doing this, of really mining the Midwest for talent. And that's true yet again when you look at this class. But they also kind of branched out a little bit. Their top recruit is coming out of Florida, and Kerry Wright got a little draft buzz, in the spring. But then again, you look at Jared Poland, Jack Perkins, Alex Benelis, Timmy Borton. These guys are the cream of the crop when it comes to that Midwest talent. And Aaron, you can speak to it. Louisville has dominated that region.
Yeah, and it's a smaller class than some of these others. The SEC classes in particular. But it's impact guys. It seems like all 10 players in this class could come in and be, real impact performers here. I don't see any guys here that are just kind of, back of the heap filler pieces. They're all, I think, really exciting sounding players. And you mentioned Kerry Wright, certainly a guy that feels like a potential future ace, the next one in that Louisville lineage there.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy fastball, 90-94, with tough downward angle. That to me, if you got a guy that can pitch heavily off the fastball with that kind of life and velocity, it's a great place to start. But he's got himself a good hard slider as well. Feel for a changeup. So I think he's got all the pieces there. I think Perkins, I think you mentioned Jack Perkins, kinds of upside. Certainly not as polished as Wright, but a guy that's really loose and I think has projection remaining and can get up into the mid-90s. Jared Poland's a two-way guy. They've had a lot of good two-way guys, of course. Everyone knows Brendan McKay.
Mm-hmm.
Cole Sturgeon comes to mind as well. Over the years, they've had a lot of players like that are just versatile, winning baseball players, and Poland certainly fits that description. Loose-armed guy that can get up 9 miles an hour and miss bats with a slider, and I think he can hit too and play defense in the infield. So those three guys to me really stand out. I really like Carter Lohman for the left side. I like Alec Pinellas a lot. Timmy Borden and Andrew Benefield. Those are three really good impact infielders that I think could all be stars.
Mm-hmm. That Carter Lohman is one of those guys that going in, like, nobody was really quite ready to, jump on him. What was the draft when I was talking to scouts, but they all loved him. They're like, look, it's just not there yet. We know he's going to Louisville, and he's going to develop into a guy. We're going to have to pay him later, but we're okay with that. And you look at some of those arms that out of high school, they were, weren't as heralded as though guys liked him. I mean, look at a guy like Drew Harrington a couple of years ago for Louisville. Carter Lohman could fit that mold in a couple of years, no doubt. So let's look at go over to the Pac-12 for number 4. UCLA, and really the big thing for UCLA, this was a good class from the beginning, but the fact that first-rounder Matt McLean is making it to campus is absolutely enormous, and with the playoffs on TV, it's relevant. This is only the second time that UCLA has gotten a first-rounder to make it to campus, the last one being, Aaron?
Garrett Cole.
There you go. Garrett Cole back in 2008. It was right when I just started at BA. I was only at BA for a couple of years at that point with you, Aaron. But I mean, they've got to be pretty excited down there in LA.
Yeah, and McLean, of course, like Kumar Rocker, like Gunnar Hoagland, some of these guys. Mississippi State, of course, with JT Ginn. I mean, these are first round kind of guys that have made it to school, and you love to see that for the good of college baseball, to have that kind of top flight talent showing up on campus. But this guy sounds dynamic. You guys, I'm sure, have seen him a bunch, but he sounds like my kind of player. He's not necessarily.
He's going to be on the all-fit team at some point or another.
It's automatic. He's 5'10" with 5 tools. I mean, talk about dynamic. This guy can do a little bit of everything. And it sounds like even the power, right, is in there. I mean, it's, again, for a guy that's not real big. You look at Alex Bregman on TV right now. McLean, to me, feels like maybe he could be that kind of a guy. I mean, he's maybe a little bit of a different sort of an athlete. I think he probably runs better than Bregman does. Maybe not as much power in there, but what do you guys think? What do you guys think McLean would be?
If McLean comes in as Alex Bregman as a freshman, you can just right now use the pen, not even pencil, to put him in Omaha. UCLA did not need much coming in this year. They had a strong sophomore core last year, and freshman Garrett Mitchell coming back. But obviously, McLean there. Jake Moberg, Brody, you and I have been a huge fan of him for
be a
while
very good college player.
And then, Brody, you can talk a little bit more, but Jesse Bergen's kind of a sleeper for me. He was at Harvard Westlake, got hurt, but we had heard those velocity reports were jumping high, and I'm sure he's got a chance to be a good one.
Yeah, I was going to jump in there and say don't sleep on Jesse Bergen. He could be pretty good. We heard some good stuff on him coming out of the winter, but unfortunately got hurt in the spring. But then just also look at the fact that he's from Harvard Westlake, and Harvard Westlake High School has 3 big leaguers in the last 5 years in Lucas Giolito, Max Fried, and Jack Flaherty. So he's coming from that lineage, so he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on, and UCLA, I'm sure, is very excited to have him. But rounding out the top 5 is Mississippi State, and obviously a huge get for them is JT Ginn. I think really the difference between them being in 5 and potentially 1 is the fact that Carter Stewart is not on campus and is going that junior college route. But even losing a guy like a top 10 pick that didn't sign Carter Stewart, this class is still just absolutely loaded, Aaron.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Ginn, everyone can't stop raving about. When you talk to people around college baseball, the recruiting coordinators are so jealous of Mississippi State getting JT Ginn because he's a badass, guys. I mean, not only does he have electric stuff, 93, 97. I think he'll show you a 99 with devastating hard slider, enough of a changeup in there. But he, he's mean. I mean, he really competes hard. I think this guy is going to be a rock star for a couple of years. And, talk about exactly what Mississippi State needed. But the other guys, that are around him, maybe not quite as much star power in the supporting cast as some of these other classes in the top 5. But I like Hayden Jones a lot. An advanced receiver behind the plate with a really strong arm, and I think a smooth left-handed swing. He can hit for some power. I think Christian McLeod and Bryce Brock are guys that have some pitchability and are going to help him right away, along with Jack Egan, who's a JUCO transfer. So kind of boost that left-handed pitching for him, and keep an eye on Eric Sarantola.
Big Canadian.
Oh, Canada.
How about that 6'5" right-hander? The latest Canadian find for Mississippi State. You remember, of course, the Maple Hammer, Jacob Robson. The Canadian, but this guy, can run it up there in the low 90s, big body with projection, overhand curve, and it sounded like he was making some waves in the fall as well, throwing up even better velocity numbers. So that guy, I think, will be a difference maker too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think right at the top, when you talk about bringing in a potential immediate impact Friday night arm who is already a first-round pick to come on campus, that really elevates your class. To give the ball to him every Friday night in the SEC and believe you can go out there and win, guy who's running it up close to 100 miles an hour and really pounding it in on right-handers' hands with that sinker. JT Ginn really is the game changer in this class. Mm-hmm. But you said it, Christian McLeod, don't sleep on him. Big left-hander who we got to see last year in Jupiter, Rhodey, and he turned down a good amount of money to go to Starkville and play there at Dudy Noble Field. Mm-hmm. And then obviously Hayden Jones behind the plate out of Indiana, an absolute bazooka. Nobody steals on him. Left-handed stick. So they do have a lot of talent here, but JT Ginn getting that first rounder to campus is going to make this a potential special class.
Yeah, it certainly is. So that's a look at the top 5 for you. If you want more, obviously you can jump on d1baseball.com. Got a top 25 rankings and detailed breakdowns on all those top 25 teams. To wrap it up here, Aaron, real quick, give us a couple of sleeper teams outside the top 25. Who are some classes that didn't make the rankings, but if you look back in a few years, maybe you feel like you should have ranked them?
Well, here's one obvious one. I think Oregon State. I've heard from the Beaver fans, of course. The only fan base I think I've heard from that is unhappy about not being ranked in the top 25. But to me, I don't think this is a vintage Oregon State class, but I do think they've got some nice players here.
Mm-hmm.
Both the shortstop, the JUCO transfer, is a guy that could come right in and fill that hole. They got a lot of holes to fill, certainly in Corvallis, and they got the athleticism and the arm and the range to play short pretty well. And two-way guy Andrew Walling, I think, could be a really nice impact player for them in both sides, and Jacob Pfennigs as well. The 6'7" right-hander was a Gatorade Player of the Year for basketball guys in the state of Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting athlete there with all kinds of projections. So certainly like the Beavers class. And then this weekend, I was on my latest fall road trip. I was down in Atlanta for a South Carolina Georgia Tech scrimmage, and actually I like the newcomers I saw in both of those classes.
Okay.
For Georgia Tech, I think it's the pitching that stands out. Luke Bartnicki, of course, physical left-handed pitcher. He was pounding 92 with 3 pitches from the left side, and boy, it looks the part. I think that guy, he's a blue chip recruit for him, and I think he's going to be really good. Court Rodig as well looked very good. He was 90-92 from the right side with a
Florida boy.
Yeah, I mean, he could spin that breaking ball too, 12-6, and feel for a changeup like that guy. They got a JUCO transfer named Amos Willingham, who was up to 92. He's been up to 94 this fall. 3 really good pitches, great body, 6'4", high pockets, physical. I mean, that guy, I think, is going to be a big-time contributor from the JUCO ranks. And in South Carolina, again, this is a team that certainly could have been easily ranked in the top 25, but Brady Allen in the outfield looked good. That guy's got some athleticism. Andrew Eister, JUCO transfer, is going to step right in probably to the left field job for him. Another guy that is got a good body with some obvious strength in that swing, and again, a guy that can run a little bit. And on the mound, I mean, nice group of JUCO transfers here. Here's one to really keep an eye on as a sleeper for South Carolina is a guy named Reed Morgan, sidearm right-hander, JUCO transfer who can get up to 90 miles an hour from that low slot. Also, a really good changeup. You don't usually see from that kind of slot. He carved 6 up, 6 down with a few strikeouts this weekend. Spin that slurve in there too. So they had a number of those JUCO transfers that I liked. Hayden Lehman is another one. But Brett Carey, freshman right-hander, they got a lot of, I think, useful pieces to slide right in there in the pitching staff and give those guys a boost.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate the detailed breakdown, Aaron. Obviously, we will jump on a podcast and talk more, about teams outside that top 5, in the top 25. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. But for Aaron Fitt, Shooter Hunt, I'm Nathan Rohde. This was Coffee and Curveballs. And until next time, we'll see you guys at the ballpark.